Palestinian holy site after Ramadan prayers, leaving dozens injured. According to Israeli authorities, dozens of masked men marched into Al-Aqsa mosque compound before dawn, carrying Palestinian and Hamas flags, chanting and setting off fireworks. Well, joining me now is journalist Jotam Confino from Tel Aviv. Jotam, thank you so much for joining me. And perhaps you could bring us up to date with what's going on in Jerusalem today.
Well, so a dangerous escalation in East Jerusalem this morning. As you mentioned, dozens, in fact, 150 Palestinians were injured on the Temple Mount, where the Al-Aqsa mosque is located, in clashes with Israeli security forces. It is very, very dangerous because the situation currently between the Palestinians and the Israelis is extremely tense. You can argue it's always tense, but in the past couple of weeks, it reached a new level. And this is due to a number of terrorist attacks committed by ISIS affiliates and Palestinians inside Israel. And of course, the retaliation coming from the Israeli side, which is night raids in the West Bank, mass arrests, and of course, a lot of casualties on the Palestinian side. So what we saw this morning was really just an escalation of the past couple of weeks, the tension. And we have to remember, it's Ramadan now, the high holiday for Muslims. It's also Pesach, the Jewish holiday. It's also Easter, of course. So the religious element here only adds to the tension, which is why we saw these scenes this morning. And the videos circulating on social media just really fan the flames on both sides. Muslims are outraged that the Israeli security forces are entering the holy Muslim site of the Al-Aqsa mosque, and Jews and Israelis are outraged. The Palestinians with Hamas flags are hurling stones and fireworks at worshippers just very close to the compound.
And Jotam, you mentioned there the geography of Al-Aqsa Mosque and the Temple Mount and the Wailing Wall and how close they are in proximity to each other. And we saw some footage earlier on before you came on the show on our news footage. And what we seen there were some quite distressing scenes in Al-Aqsa Mosque. And I'm sure those are distressing for all the faithful, whether you're Jewish, Muslim or indeed Christian at this holy time. Will there be a stepping back from this after today's prayers and after this holy day, which of course is marked by all of the Abrahamic faiths?
Well, that is the big question. I think the majority of people here in Israel and the Palestinian territories are hoping for this to calm down. I don't think most people are interested in a war, but as we all know, it doesn't take many extreme people on each side to fan the flames to a point where you actually escalate to such a point that you're entering a war. If we just rewind exactly a year ago, we saw the exact same scenes on in the Al-Aqsa Mosque on the Temple Mount, hundreds of Palestinians injured daily, and it escalated with Hamas firing rockets from Gaza into Israel, actually over Jerusalem, because Hamas, as we have to remember, thinks that Israel is occupying all of the land, both Israel, the Palestinian territories, East Jerusalem. But the red line for Hamas is the Al-Aqsa Mosque, and they've said it repeatedly. So they already said today that Israel will bear the consequences of what happened today in the Al-Aqsa Mosque. To them, it is outrageous that Israelis are entering in such a way. So everyone here is really just waiting to hear if we're going to hear rocket sirens as we're used to here in Israel, and if the retaliation from the Israeli side will be another Gaza war. It could be. Everyone here is really expecting some sort of escalation. Whether it will be a war or a more controlled escalation remains to be seen, of course.
Well, that's very concerning news, Jotam. And you're in Tel Aviv today, and of course, this time last week I was speaking to one of your countrymen about the fact that there'd been that horrific attack in Tel Aviv last Thursday. Have things calmed in Tel Aviv since last Thursday's attack?
They've calmed because people are used to always being alert, so life goes on. But you see an unusual amount of policemen patrolling the streets pretty much all over Israel. There's a sense of heightened security, and especially in East Jerusalem, thousands of additional police forces have been deployed. And in the West Bank, of course, they're actually imposing a lockdown now for the next 48 hours because of the Jewish Passover, and because they want to prevent any terror attacks from happening in the coming 48 hours. So security forces are on maximum alert here, and people here are just, getting used to it. It's not the first time we've seen waves of terror attacks in Israel. It's been happening for decades, really.
Jotam, thank you very much for joining me and for updating our viewers and listeners this afternoon. Well, Angelica, unfortunately, it is something that we've come to expect in Jerusalem at this time of year, but it's still nonetheless very distressing to see those pictures, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very concerning to see. They often see heightened violence around Ramadan and with it being Passover and Easter weekend, but it's very concerning. And also at a time when tourism was actually picking back up to the region and lots of Jewish people from around the world will be travelling to Israel for Passover for the next 8 days. It's very sad to see.
It is indeed, and he was saying there he expected some sort of reaction to the fact that the security forces had got into the Al-Aqsa mosque. I understand that they went in after prayers, but I don't think that will have a big impact because they're saying that has really breached their place, their holy place. So there will be a reaction, according to Jotam, and of course we hope that's not the case. But